that we use to do canning. So is everything you can do without buying anything super expensive. So I'm going to start from like the very basics all the way up to like more expensive things that you can get. Hello for everybody saying hello. So very basically, you can start off with something like this. This is just a saucepan, and it does have a lid, and you can put these rings at the bottom like this, or a tea towel. I find that if you put a tea towel at the bottom of these, then it's really loud, like really loud. So this is a way better solution, and you don't have to buy a rack. The racks are about 15 quid. I don't own one, so I don't have one to show you. I have used this for years. I think 7 years I use saucepans like this. So it was completely, utterly just something I had in the house to make it as cheap and cheerful as possible. Oh, hello, Rachel, how are you? I'm just watching my tomato chutney. Way! Yes, we're talking about canning today, sorry. When I first started canning, I started canning with these, just take the label off, just jam jars like this, and I filled them up with whatever I was canning, used a bit of lemon juice or whatever it was, and I put them inside my saucepan and boiled them away. I have, over the years, because I've been canning now for 8 years, it goes so quickly, I've moved on to proper jars for canning. And the reason I moved away from these are great when you first start out because of the expense of buying these jars. These jars are quite expensive. Here in the UK, I buy 12 of these jars for £25. They are like really good. I dropped one just now when I was getting everything ready and it bounced on the floor. It was this one, so it isn't actually broken. So they are really good quality. This is the cheapest I actually found them, whereas these obviously are free. I don't actually buy jars anymore, jar food anyway. So people give them to me. So in all different sizes, I get them. And yeah, they're great if you do get them. I worry a little bit about these jars just because I have had them that leak, and reusing lids aren't always great. As you can see, this one's started to get a little bit of rust on it already, and it's only ever, like, this is a brand new jar. So I use these for dried goods, and also I use them for popping oils in. They're amazing. I just got a question about botulism. Which jars has less chance of botulism? That's not how it works. So the corporations, this is me with my tin hat on, would like you to think this is a safer jar. There is no difference between these two jars that I can tell. This has a two-part lid, and the advantage of that, and this is a jar that I've pressure canned, so you can see that that's really is on there, and it doesn't have that noise where it is definitely open. But we've all spent our entire lives being really familiar with these jars, and you know this also has one, and if you open it you hear that click on top, and you've probably bought a jar that you've opened and it's gone off in the fridge. Let's be honest, we've all done it. So let's be honest, they're pretty much similar, but the price is a very big difference between them. So if you're starting out, and I've spoken to a few people that are starting out, and they've said like, oh Nick, shall I buy the canner, shall I buy this? Well, it's 200, it's about £100 for a canner, okay? For a automatic canner, which I do love, it was just over £100, okay? So if you are really, really into this as a hobby, and you're like, this is my life, I'm so many years in, or I'm a year in, I'm not going to stop, then yes, it's worth investing in. Is it worth investing in start off with? No. Now, thanks Sheridan, because she's, how much do they sell for? What are they that you're talking about? The jars or the canners? Sorry, I'm not quite following. There's two types of jars that you can get. well, there's loads of types of jars you can get, but these are the main two. You've got the wide mouth jars, which are fantastic for pickles or anything chunky. I prefer this one because then I don't have to swap and change between them. And then you do have the narrow jars here. Now, the narrow jars, so I'm gonna go, my next door neighbour's having a party. So the narrow lids ones, they're not as good for anything that's chunky because it gets stuck. Like these beans are gonna be a bit of a pain to get out. So I've just moved on to those. These small ones are perfect for small sauces, etc. I've got, so Rach says, I've learned all about this from Nick, tried water bathing for the first year. Yes, it's really easy. Hi for everyone that's coming in. It's super easy if you are coming in as a beginner. It's an easy hobby to get into. It's not something that's difficult and it's not something that's scary. So if you are just starting out as someone who is canning, it can feel really intimidating, but it really isn't. This is the minimum equipment, really. One thing I would say is I was umming and ahhing to do this. I have a bench scraper for sourdough. I like this for getting up any spills or anything like that. You don't have to have one. This, I would say you do have to have. This is a jar lifter. It works like this. Obviously, if you're taking it out of a hot pan, you don't want to put your hand in the hot pan and you can't really wait for the water to cool down because that's not really the best way to get a good seal. So I would say that this is probably one of the pieces of equipment that you definitely do need. I've seen lots of people, I don't know if I can actually do it, they use them like this, but it is the wrong way round and I can't imagine that being as safe because you normally operate these like one-handed. So these jar lifters are an absolute godsend. I did have the box one, which has the 4 kind of spikes, but I got rid of it because I couldn't get on with it. Doesn't mean that you won't get on with it, but this is the this is the one that I really got on with. And what's useful, but you don't need, is one of these spatulas, which is just a silicone spatula that you can use to scrape out any pans that you're getting the last remnants out of when you are canning. But really, that is the basics that you need. So feel free to ask any questions that you have regarding any of the equipment that I've just showed you. So we have our rings. These are super handy anyway, just to put at the bottom of the canner if you're going to be doing it with a saucepan. Your jars, and I've explained those to you for those of us who've just come in. I don't feel necessarily that you have to buy these, but they are reusable. Oh, there's one more jar that I actually got out that I forgot to show you. This is a swing top jar. These are a more expensive option, but like I was saying earlier, none of these are more safe. They're all the same. Where did I get the jar lifter from? This jar lifter I got as like a multi-pack, and Sheridan, if you wanna, yeah, that's the one. So I got that sort of pack. Now, most of the stuff I didn't use, but it is a pretty cheap pack. I do use, especially when I started out, the headspace measurer, which is on the bubbler. A bubbler is just anything, literally. You can use a chopstick, you can use a knife, you could even use the end of your spatula, whatever you have. And what you want to do is take out as many bubbles as possible from your substance that you're making. Because if you've got too many bubbles in there, it won't seal, right? And you want it to seal nicely. So that's the reason why you have one of those, and you want to judge the headspace. It's kind of a rule of thumb with headspace, and it's about an inch for pressure canning, and then for sauces and stuff is about a half an inch, and you don't really want to go over that because it just won't seal. Yeah, Amazon is amazing. I get everything from Amazon. The other thing that I feel like you really need is a good vinegar that's 5% as well, so that you could wipe your rims, which is this bit here. You wipe that down with a bit of paper towel and a bit of vinegar to make sure that there's no sauce stopping them lids from adhering or sticking on. If your jar is massive, you see, right, when it comes to jars, there's really only certain amount of jars that you can use. So this is a half pint, this is a pint, and then you've got quarts. Really, you should only water can officially up to a quart, which is a litre for us Brits. You shouldn't be doing too many, but you cannot water bath with the jar above the water. It has to be below, an inch or two below the water level for water canning. Yes, thank you, Rachel. I have seen that. Sports Direct are currently selling, I think they're Kefla jars, aren't they? For £6 which is ridiculously cheap. I haven't gone for them only because I've kind of like committed to one sort of jar, and I've got so many of them. If I was going to go ahead and buy them, then I'd be popping down to Sports Direct, because that is an absolute steal. If your jar is massive, I already answered that question. I have a Sports Direct near me if you want to pick them up. Yes, that's my sister, by the way. She's not just... So yes, if you want to go to Sports Direct, go for it. That'd be awesome. And watering bath doesn't take 9 hours. Yes. So best thing to do with water bath is to get it on the hob as quickly as possible so that it's bubbling up. It does take a long time. That is right. Thank you, Rachel. It does take a long time to boil up sometimes, particularly if you have a ceramic hob like I do. That's my ceramic hob, sourdough, nice and close so I can cook it. My ceramic hob is a bit of a pain in the bum. That's why I moved to an automatic canner, is because if you have a ceramic hob like I do, people say you don't can on ceramic hobs. No, you can can. I canned on a ceramic hob for 7 years. And the issue I had with it is it turns off. It has a safety mechanism in it, and I think it's like an hour and a half, it turns off. So if you have a ceramic hob, you'll notice it is really slow to heat up water as well, my goodness. And think about it, you're filling it up with as a lot of water as possible. So it is very, very slow. Yeah, so talk about sterilisation. If you are water bathing over 10 minutes, you don't have to sterilise your jars. I'm pretty sure that's most places now say that as well. And that's because if you're going to sterilise your jar for 10 minutes, then you're going to touch it with your dirty hands, right? And you're going to put it in the dirty air. Obviously, bacteria is going to drop off it from the air. You might even be talking over it. I used to work in a lab in London, and when we were doing experiments with bacteria, we weren't allowed to talk at all whilst we were interacting with any of the sterilised equipment, because obviously you're spewing out bacteria and viruses and whatever's in your mouth. So once you fill it up with non-sterile liquid and you process it again, what you want is to match your temperatures as well. So if you're using cold, like your cold packing, your liquids, you want cold jars, you don't want boiling hot jars, and you want coldish water. It doesn't have to be exactly the same, but it has to be like tepid. It's really important. But if you're hot packing, which is so much faster, then you want hot sauce, hot jars, hot canner. And the way I heat up my jars is I put my kitchen tap on as high as it goes, so it's really hot. I let it run whilst I'm like getting ready, and then when it's really hot, I just fill up all my jars and pop them on the side whilst it kind of heats up. And then when I'm ready, I dump out all the water and fill up my jars that way, and it works out really well. And I simmer my lids for 10 minutes. I've found that if I don't simmer my lids for 10 minutes, I get about 40% of the jars seal. Whereas if I simmer the jars for 10 minutes, 100% of my jars actually seal. Are canners loud? So it depends. Like I said, I used a saucepan for years. If I put a tea towel at the bottom of my saucepan, you don't want to put your jars sort of completely, utterly on the bottom because they will shatter. So if I put a tea towel at the bottom of my canner, then yes, it is very loud. And the automatic canner, which I have, it just sounds like a kettle boiling every so often. So yes, it's louder than being absolutely silent, but it isn't like deafeningly loud, like running a Hoover or something like that. But obviously, when you are canning, particularly if you're canning on a hob in a stock pot, you do have to watch it. So it will be loud and it will be hot. And sadly, canning season runs all the way through summer. So you are going to be in a hot kitchen with a hot pot of water on the stove, and it's going to be swelteringly hot. So there is that part to it as well. I find that the automatic canner, like I said, you don't have to have one. Well, I find that easier because you can put that on and walk away from it. And I have the back door open, I can get on with some other jobs around the house, etc. And I'm just around here, so I find that easier. But obviously it's a lot of money, so I would start off with just the pot that you already have at home. So is there any more questions about water bath equipment? Has anyone tried water bathing yet? There's a good question. So for me, I was really nervous to eat my water bath canned food when I first started. I don't know if you guys were like that as well, but I've obviously been eating it for years and nothing bad has happened to me. Is there any equipment that you've bought that you've never needed? Yes. Yes, there's been. So I had a magnetic lid holder. I don't even know what that is. I never used it. One thing I forgot to get out, which is in the bundle of equipment, is, let me see if I can, love doing this lastminute.com, is my powder funnel. I don't know where it is at the moment. Powder funnel I did buy myself this huge long ladle, which I was like, oh, this is such a good buy, I'm going to use it. Never use. I use a cup instead to decant all of my sauces. I find that's much easier than using a ladle, particularly the large ladles that you can get for big stocks. I do many like huge batches, so I thought that was a good idea. It wasn't. But I'm not massively, so that's my back door. I've left it open because I'm baking bread and it's really hot in here. But I'm not one for just buying things needlessly. So I haven't bought that much. I've bought a lot of jars that I wouldn't buy again. I bought La Parfait jar. I have a lid for it. I bought these because they were really cheap jars. And these lids are so expensive. They're like 15 quid for 10. So I'd never buy those again. I also bought these old-fashioned jars. Maybe you buy them and they literally, I've heard people rave about these jars, but I break them a lot, and I break the ball jars and they're super expensive. These are the only jars that I haven't touched wood. I haven't broken one of, and they're the home jars that I get off of Amazon, so they're the cheapest ones as well. Is it best to add meat? So you can't add meat into water bath canning, okay? Water bath canning is only for high acid foods, okay? Pickles, ketchup, I water bath this, barbecue sauces, tomato based sauces, any pickle, fruit, etc. So like tin peaches, I water bath those, peach butter, I water bath that. Anything that's fruit based or acid based, okay? You can't do meat. Meat needs to be pressure canned. Pressure canning gets it way hotter so that it stops botulism. When you're worrying about botulism, which is a bacteria you get in preserved food, okay? You can't taste it, you can't smell it, you can't see it. That is a concern for pressure canning. It's not a concern really for water bath canning, okay? Water bath canning is high acid, and that's why when we're canning, we put a tablespoon of lemon juice in every single jar, which means that it's going to be high enough acid for botulism not to develop. So you can't do meat because meat is low acid and it needs to be pressure canned. So jam, yes, you can water bath, and tomatoes, yes, you can water bath. Tomato sauce, jams, yes, that's correct. So jams, tomatoes, fruit, etc. you need to water bath. Beans, chili, anything that goes off of the sort of very strict of mostly tomatoes, then you need a pressure can it. I used to pressure can my tomato sauces because I used to put chicken stock in them, or I used to put lots of vegetables in it. Then you would have to pressure can, and pressure can's like a totally different beast than water bath canning. Maybe I'll do a live on that one day, but at the moment I don't really want to talk too much about it because it confuses people. But the easiest and the most beginning friendly one is water bath canning, and if you get to the point where you've water bath canned quite successfully, then I would move on to pressure canning. Pressure canners are very expensive here in the UK. I believe in America they're like $100, which is a lot of money, don't be wrong, but I bought my pressure canner almost 10 years ago and it was near on 500 quid. I say that, if you see my husband, then it was on discount, it was less than 100, all right? It's a really big investment. And I think now they have dropped down, but they are over £100. I think they're close to 200. So it is a big investment. So you do need to think, am I canning? Do I actually have things I want to pressure can? So for me, I have a pressure canner. But if I was going to make chili con carne, I would can the sauce. So that would be tomatoes with the flavourings in there. And then I would cook it up on the day fresh. Oh, thank you. So my dog's come to say hello. Hello, Bailey. So that's what I personally would go ahead and do. I wouldn't run out to get a pressure canner just for one thing I want a pressure can, because they're just so expensive. And I'd have a good think about it. Yeah, to try, that's what I personally do. That's like how I would do it, is I'd start off pressure canning in stock pot. You probably have one of these at home. Just make sure that it's tall enough that you have 1 inch or 2 inches above the jar level, so that you can have a consistent temperature all the way around the jar, and make sure that it gets up to a rolling boil before you start your timer. There are tons of free apps that you can get on your phone that will actually even time and tell you and remind you of each step you're meant to do before you turn your canner on, and then it will time your canning for you. And I think it's called Canning Timer, and I use that for absolute years, and it's really good. It has a little alarm, and it's, you know, it's perfect, it's everything you want, and it's free. Can you use any saucepan? Yes, as long as your saucepan is able to accommodate a canning ring at the bottom, because we can't put our cans at the bottom of our canner. So you do this, and then above here is at least 1 inch of headroom so the water can boil all the way around your jar. Then you're absolutely golden, and you can use any pot at all. You don't need to use a huge canner or a huge stock pot to only do a couple of jars. If you're only doing 4 jars, then you can absolutely use a smaller one. If you're going to use even smaller jars, you can use an even smaller stock pot, okay? But I'd get used to doing very small batches before you think about doing really big batches as well, because I know, for example, my last video I did like, I have no idea how many jars I did, maybe 30, 40. Maybe even 50 jars. That's like, for me, is I've worked up to that over these years. Don't feel that you watch someone on YouTube or on TikTok or wherever it is and you feel like, oh my goodness, they're doing these big batches, I have to do them too. No, you can do like 1 jar, 2 jars. That's how I started off. Can the jars touch? No. So your jars in the canner, if your jars touch like this, where there's the ring on them, so I let my jars touch like this, so the 2 lids are touching, that's fine. But you don't want the actual glass to be touching, because as they rattle around, I won't do that because it's probably irritating, as they rattle around they can break. Also, I found that you do the top of the jar up fingertip tight, you can get it where this has happened twice to me, and I literally, before it happened to me, no one talks about it. It's like madness, but you can actually have a jar, and like I said, it rattles when it's cooking, hence the noise. So it's rattling around like that because obviously it's boiling, and sometimes, rarely, but sometimes, it gets to the point where the rattling is so perfect that it unwinds the lid, and the lid comes off, and all your contents goes all over the canner, which is really annoying, and it's because of the vibrations. That's happened to me twice in 8 years. I know, right? But really, there's not very much wrong when you can get it into the can there. The most common thing to happen is the jar will shatter. When you put it in, it makes a dunk noise, and the bottom completely shears off all the way around. Or, which is really dangerous and very scary, is that when you take it out the canner, the bottom will fall off and shatter as you take it out. These 2 things happen because you're not listening to the one golden rule about canning, is hot jars, hot canner, hot substance, yeah? If you keep that rule in your head, if it's cold can, cold canner, cold substance, right? And hot jar, hot canner, hot substance, you'll never have that happen to you. I saw someone with terrible burns, and it is really scary because of that. So what you want to do is, if you're using hot jars, you're putting it into a hot canner and letting it process. If it's cold, especially if you're canning in the winter, you have to listen to that 10 minutes that you keep them in the canner after you turn the power off. That lets it cool down enough, and do not have the back door open in the winter when you're canning, because it will shatter the glass. And you don't want to be lifting your contents up like that. It's 100 degrees. It will obviously scald you. So what you want to do is make sure that you don't have any drafts, you don't have any cold area around it, because they do break. But I have broken many jars putting them in a canner, but I've never, touch wood, had them break when I've taken them out. I lost my, there you go. So what did you do, Rachel? Was it a hot canner and putting a cold jar into it? That is probably, if you are starting out, I do recommend cold canning, where you take cold sauce, you put it into a cold jar and you put it into a cold canner. You cannot break your jars that way. When you've got your processing time, which is normally 45 minutes, you turn your canner off, you leave it cooling down for 10 minutes. Then what I do is I take them out and I put them onto a tea towel, and then let them cool down naturally with the door shut. Yeah, so what you did there is you put hot sauce into a cold jar. If you don't want to do that, next time, to put your bathroom tap, don't use your bathroom tap, put your kitchen tap on, run it on hot for like 5 minutes so that it's really quite warm. Fill your jar up with the hot water, leave it on your side whilst you have about a 5-minute faff, don't you, where you're just messing about, doing stuff, getting things ready. Empty out and then put your hot sauce, it won't shatter. You put them in the oven. Yeah, the issue with doing that is that ovens are a different heat. So you have 2 types of heat. You have dry heat and you have wet heat. And what happens when you've got dry heat and you put wet in it is that it shatters the jar. So you've got to be careful with putting them in the oven before you put anything in them because it's just not recommended. Oh, it was before I came into your life. It's my fault then. If we knew each other longer, then it wouldn't have been. It wouldn't have happened. Hello, Kerry. How are you? Yeah. So hot water is the best way to go. Oven can be a little bit ditzy. I've never done. Well, I tell a lie. I've done it once in the oven, but I just felt that it is a lot. I feel like it's a lot of, it's a lot more worrying to me. So I find just using hot water out the tap is the best way to do it. And my hot water gets really quite warm. Right, my next door neighbours have started their party and you probably can hear it. So I'm now going to go and attempt to do bedtime. So thank you so much for spending this time for me and I'll see you later on. Bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.